You are listening to the Nightly News Podcast, the voice of the Knights.
Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I'm so honored to be joined by several people around campus that are, we're really here today to talk about the upcoming Memorial Day celebration here on campus, but not only that, just the Memorial Day holiday in general, as well as some of the experiences of some of our club members. First of all, I want to welcome one of our student success coaches here, Megan Kaiser. Megan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, Paul.
It's been a little while since we've had you on, but you have been on a podcast before a couple times.
Mm-hmm. More than once.
So we're looking forward to having you back. Also want to say hello and welcome to Bret Saveleski. Bret is one of our go-getter Nightly News Media Club members and has really stepped in with the athletic department this year and has just done some phenomenal work. And now that we look back in hindsight on the baseball season, what were some of your thoughts about your experience working with athletics this year?
It was great. Probably my favorite job I've ever had, working up in the booth, working on stats, watching the game, keeping a close eye on everything, helping the scorekeepers out, the people who aren't like as involved in baseball, don't know like the difference between a hit and an error, helping them learn about it. And I think it definitely brought some more interest to our student workers in the baseball program.
Yeah, absolutely. And, what can you say about the ESAC championship game? I mean, it's just probably the most insane game that I've ever been a part of since I've been calling games here for, I think 7 years now that I've been doing it. It was just an amazing game and such an amazing time. So glad you were a part of it.
It's glad to be there.
Also want to welcome Rodney Edwards. Rodney is also one of our wonderful Nightly News Media Club members. Rodney, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
So one of the things that I want to talk about is the upcoming Memorial Day cookout that's going to take place on Thursday, May 23rd at noon in the Quad. It's something that Megan has sort of spearheaded over the years in advance of Memorial Day because, of course, the college is closed on Memorial Day. But Megan, I want to talk to you a little bit, and we'll continue to talk about that cookout. But part of your job here is working with some of our military men and women who are on campus. So explain to the audience maybe how you got that role and how your appreciation for service members maybe has evolved over time since you've had the opportunity to work with those students.
Well, I sort of fell into the role when they rearranged student services. I took one that gave support to athletics, and veterans came along with it. We hadn't had a support for veterans before that, so it's all been a learning experience for me. And I would say my appreciation has been in the details. So my husband, he works for Department of Environmental Protection, and he works with the federal government on military sites, and he tells me, Megan, there's 50 acronyms in one paragraph of this report, and I'm starting to learn that the details are pretty heavy when dealing with anything military. So I'm getting emails from students who talk about their date of his separation, and then he goes on to talk about some other kind of service that he did after his separation from the military, but there was an acronym for that one too. It's all been a heavy learning experience, but at this point, I've completed the training to be a honorary SCO, see, another acronym for School Certifying Official through the VA. There's a third acronym.
There you go. You have a ton of acronyms that you're trying to deal with in terms of learning this stuff. But I mean, so just in your experiences with working with folks in the military as a success coach, maybe beyond some of the navigating the acronyms, what are some of the unique circumstances that military men and women who are returning back to college might find themselves in that might need a specific skill set that you offer?
I think some of it is just being able to navigate all of the different situations they come across. So a student might be transferring from this school to another school, and all of our transfer students deal with the difference in our term system versus other school semester systems. But then you bring the GI Bill into it, where the GI Bill is assigned to a student and is usually assigned to a student at an institution, but they're going to try to split it across institutions, and it gets to be really intricate. So I work with John Steindel pretty closely on helping our students who are veterans to navigate all of the intricacies that they have to deal with.
Fantastic. And I'm sure that our military men and women are very privileged to have you assist them with that and continue. And before we move on from this, Megan, number one, I just appreciate that you're willing to go above and beyond to get these certifications and go through these trainings to provide a very special and needed function here for Central Penn. We've always, since I've been here, been very, very active in bringing our military men and women in here. And I can honestly say from my perspective, it brings something to the classroom. Of course, gentlemen, in your particular situations, you are the leaders in these classrooms. You're the ones who are stepping up and volunteering to do things, and that means so much. But just in terms of diversity, we talked about this with West Shore Connect students and what the West Shore Connect students bring to our classroom, and that students of all different backgrounds have the opportunity to work with individuals of different types of needs. For people who are coming from a military background, you are also providing stability and strength in the classroom that does rub off on your peers, which I think is unbelievably admirable, and I think something that's valuable to those other students in the classrooms. So I do want to have the chance to talk to Rodney and Bret about their military experiences. Of course, only share with what you're comfortable going out to the listener base here for the Nightly News podcast. But Bret, do you mind sharing with me, what branch of the service you were in, what types of things that you did, how you look back on that in reflection years later?
Yeah, of course. So I served in the United States Navy from 2016 until 2021. I left for boot camp on June 15th of 2016, which was 2 weeks after I graduated high school. Was also very newly 18 years old. Had no idea how the world worked or anything like that. I served as a torpedoman, which is a submarine-specific rate. I served on the good ship, the USS Newport News, SSN 750, deployed twice, with many other underways in between. I think I did the math one time during one of my underways, and I think I spent about 2.5 years of combined time out to sea.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot.
Tell us about what it's like being under the water for such a long period of time. Like, what's the longest you can ever recall being under the water without coming back up?
So funny you should mention that, because during my second deployment, we actually left in December of 2019, and then we all know what happened in March of 2020. Which kept us out to sea because we couldn't pull in anywhere because nobody really knew, nobody understood the pandemic at that point yet. So we were all like, we can't get sick. There were actually ships who did pull into some places, and they did have personnel get sick, and then they couldn't leave. And then they had to emergency deploy other ships to come fulfill their duty. So that first underway on that second deployment that I was on was 136 straight days we were out, which broke the United States fast attack submarine record for longest underway.
Oh my gosh, 136 days.
136 days.
That's over 4 months. That's 4.5 months.
Yes, we actually had to send out an emergency message to an aircraft carrier who was in the area to come meet us while we were out to sea in the middle of the Atlantic to give us food because we were running short.
Oh my gosh. And how many people were on that ship approximately, if you had to guess?
About 150.
That's unbelievable. And talk to me about like what it's like. Now, obviously, I think we all sort of remember what it was like those first, that first few weeks of COVID. Like, we don't really know what's going on. Everybody was sort of just staying at home and not leaving. What was it like for you being sort of isolated on that ship? Like, were you able to get news updates, or did you have any contact with the outside world?
Yes, that is the one saving grace that I think helped everybody kind of keep their sanity while we were out that long, because we didn't understand this thing. All we heard was everybody's losing their jobs, all these businesses were closing. The one saving grace that we did have was every day, twice a day, we were able to come up to periscope depth, raise up our antennas, and get emails, which is our only form of communications out there. So we were at least able to pretty regularly check in with our family just to know what's going on.
And did you develop a different type of bond with the people who were on board because of being in that close of proximity for that length of time?
Well, that happens regardless of how long you're out. I've always said this, the greatest thing about the submarine service and the military, but from my experience in particular, is that you are closer to these people than you can even imagine, closer to family members. I mean, you're literally sleeping. If you're in a middle bunk, you have a guy 3 feet on top of you, 3 feet underneath you. You get so close to these guys that you have no choice but to get along with them. And yeah, I made some of the greatest friendships while I was on that will last forever. People I still talk to every day. And yeah, it's very important to just, well, also for contact after you get out, because I know people who are all over the country. So if I ever were to leave Pennsylvania, I have, 3-4 people in most, like the East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, that I could reach out to and be like, hey, what's living here like?
Support system.
It's a big support system.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, I can't thank you enough for your service. Honestly, it really means the world that you've decided to come here to Central Penn and you've gotten to share those experiences with other students. I think that's just so valuable. I can't even put into words. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Well, Rodney, I want to come around to you and get a little bit more of a sense of your experience in the military. Why did you decide to go into the military? What experiences did you take away from that time with the Air Force?
Like Bret, I didn't exactly join right out of high school. I waited about 4 years. I've had family who was in the Air Force, a father and a grandfather, so I had a feeling I was going to go in there eventually. After about 4 years of just not having any success or any luck in the civilian side, I decided I'd take the leap. That's when I decided I'd join the Air Force because that's what I was familiar with. Spent 2 months in training in Texas and San Antonio, and then I spent about 6 months in Wichita Falls, Texas, and after that, it was just kind of a standstill over in Florida for a little bit. I did get deployed twice, though, so I got to leave for about a year and a half. I went over to Afghanistan for the first deployment, and then the second deployment, I went over to Qatar, and joining the military has definitely taught me how to grow up, how to be responsible, basic adult things that you don't even think about prior to joining the service, and just having respect for life in general, because you get different perspectives from just being all around the world. And just in between the deployments, I did stop by so many other countries like Germany, Ireland, so many other places I can't even think of right now, and get to talk with the locals, so you definitely get alternate perspectives, which you grow to appreciate.
Tell me, what's it like to fly a plane?
Imagine vertigo. You got to get used to that a bit, because when you're traveling around on a plane, you're just up in the air and you kind of feel the movement. If you're in a fighter jet, you can go upside down. I was always in the heavies though, so you just got to get really used to the way. It's almost like being on a ship. It's the same kind of feeling.
That's awesome. Well, again, Rodney, I can't thank you enough for everything that you did, being active duty. So the one thing that I do want to talk about today, and I want everyone to have a chance to talk about, is we're really here to talk about Memorial Day. Of course, Megan and her team is responsible for doing the Memorial Day Cookout. Please save the date for Thursday, May 23rd at noon in the Quad for the Memorial Day Cookout. But really, what I want to talk about here, and I'd like everyone to share, what is it? Like, first of all, let's talk about what Memorial Day is. What is the function of it as a holiday, and other than being a day off for most people, but also what it means to you personally, and maybe how you have celebrated in the past. So, Megan, I'm going to start with you. When you think of Memorial Day, what does that mean to you? How does that resonate with you, especially as somebody who works with our military men and women here at Central Penn?
I did some reading about it. It's been a very big learning experience. And apparently Memorial Day is meant to celebrate those who have died in service. We generally turn it into celebrating those who have served in general, which is Veterans Day in the spring. And I've just come to appreciate it as a chance to hear the stories like Bret and Rodney have shared of those who had a perhaps boring experience, perhaps meaningful experience, whatever it was, and every veteran's going to have something different. Just a chance for them to share what that was like. I understand that that being able to share is one of the important things for veterans returning home, is just finding people who can relate to them, who want to hear, don't just want to say thank you for serving, but want to say, tell me about it. And so that's how I'm hoping to celebrate Memorial Day.
Now, did you ever have any other family members? I know that you said that your husband works with the military through his job. Did you ever have any other family members who were service men or women?
I don't have a big military family. My grandfather was a cook on a submarine in World War II. No, sorry, great-grandfather. That's the closest that I get.
Well, hey, the people need to eat. I mean, that's an essential need for people in the military.
That's right.
So just a little bit of background about me. So not only did my grandfather serve in the Air Force in the Korean War, I have also worked with a variety of organizations who have had a very high military-centric focus. In fact, a business that I started several years back, one of the main organizations that we supported was the Wounded Warrior Project, and a lot of our sort of community outreach that we did. We also did some things exclusively to and for ex-military men and women. So I have had that opportunity, Megan, to not only grow up, with a fond appreciation of the military, but also later in my life, through businesses that I owned and co-owned and worked with, had the opportunity to work with a lot of military men and women, which again has given me, just like you, a different perspective and a different thought process behind the supporting of military men and women. Megan, to your point, I think a lot of people generally support our troops, but to your point, a lot of times it's just simply that, like, yes, thank you, but we're not really necessarily having the opportunity or allowing a platform for our military men and women to stand up and speak about their experiences because, for many folks, it's unbelievably traumatic. Now, to your point, I suppose there's people out there who maybe didn't get close to the front lines and maybe didn't have as great of a story to tell. But on the other hand, I'm sure a lot of people have witnessed a lot of things, not only just separation from family, if that's not bad enough, but maybe much more horrific things than that. So just the ability to talk about it in a positive way and with colleagues and friends, I think is extraordinarily important. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Bret, when you think of Memorial Day, what is it that stands out to you, especially somebody as an ex-serviceman?
Yeah, I think Megan hit it right on the head. I mean, she definitely made a good point that most people think of it as just another day to think about the troops, and that's definitely appreciated. And I'm sure I could speak for both me and Rodney when I say that. We really appreciate the fact that so many people are willing to take that day off and just consider the troops, and especially those who have died. I mean, they made the ultimate sacrifice. I mean, I'm lucky enough to not know anybody personally who lost their life, but my grandpa he served in Vietnam during the Tet Offensive. My great-grandpa served. He actually served on D-Day in World War II.
Wow.
Yeah, he stormed the beaches, and
wow,
he was wounded. He came back home, thank God. But yeah, and we would always listen to them tell stories.
I bet that was just unbelievable listening to those stories.
Unbelievable. I mean, he did die when I was 10 years old, so I wasn't quite old enough to really understand the gravity of that situation of what happened over there. But yeah, lot of stories, a lot of grief.
And do you think your family and their attachment to the military was one of the reasons maybe that you decided to enter into the military at some point?
Well, I always had an interest in it, for sure. Honestly, the main reason why I joined the military was because I didn't have any interest in going to college straight out of high school. I didn't want to just go work at a plant with my dad or something like that, which a lot of my family members and people in my area kind of fell into, look on it now. But also, yeah, the family legacy was definitely it definitely played a role because I always did look up to my grandpa and my great grandpa while he was still alive, and I'm sure that definitely played a factor in my decision for sure.
Sure. Rodney, when you think about Memorial Day, what is it that stands out to you, and what are some things you think about when the holiday rolls around every year?
Well, I do think about all the people that have served in the past, and like Megan said and like Bret said, they gave it their all. They committed to something, and regardless of whether you think the war was justified or not, or whether the people did the right thing when they're in there. Being in Afghanistan, I've seen some people, you can bring out the best or the worst in you, and it can definitely change you, and you have different stories and experiences when you come back. I did have somebody commit suicide on me. He was in the service, and it's definitely a shock, but it does change you, and it does put some pressure on you.
How do you, so as we kind of move forward, the question remains, so this year, Monday, May 27th, college is closed. How are we going to be spending this Memorial Day, even if it's just not necessarily what you're doing, but what you're thinking about and who you're thinking and who you're going to spend that time with? How do you anticipate yourself spending this Memorial Day, Megan?
I have 3 children who demand a lot of attention, but perhaps we will share some stories with them of what happened. I know for my daughter's birthday, her little brother got a token present, and it was a I Survived graphic novel of D-Day, which got his grandparents and me and my husband telling them about what D-Day is. And so maybe we'll just deliberately take some time to discuss with the kids some of these things.
Absolutely. Bret, how do you anticipate celebrating Memorial Day this year?
Be getting together with the family, just like we always do, having a cookout as we're having on campus. Definitely spending some quality time with the grandpa. telling him some stories that I may not have told him yet, asking him some more stuff about Vietnam, because the 1960s were a fascinating time in American history that I've grown a great appreciation for, so I always love to get his perspective on the climate back then.
And Bret, of course, we want to take the time to chat with him, but I guarantee he also wants to know what you're up to right now, and you can hopefully share some of those stories about the amazing ESAC championship game with him. I'm sure he would love to hear about that.
That's exactly right. I got some nice photos to share with him.
Awesome. So, Rodney, how do you anticipate spending your Memorial Day this year?
Well, I'm probably just going to take it a little slow. I still got some work ahead of me. I'm not going to slow down on that, but I'll probably pull out the whole picture that I got from a friend's funeral and just got to put it out there for anybody who might want to hear a story.
I think that's I appreciate you sharing that, Rodney, because I think that's what this is all about to a certain point, is that both of you have had different experiences than almost every other student here on campus. And those experiences, and by sharing those experiences, that's really what education's supposed to be about. We're supposed to be gathering people who are different from us, learning from different people, and these are the types of things that can actually help other people and teach them lessons about, to Ronnie's point, it's not even whether about you agree or disagree. Like, the people who are in the military have basically signed up and put the well-being of our country over their own individual thoughts and goals to a certain perspective. So I can't thank you guys enough, not only just for being here, but for sharing these stories with our campus community. So again, Thursday, May 23rd at noon, there will be the Memorial Day Cookout here on campus. Please stop by and talk to Bret, talk to Rodney, and help them, relive some of the times that they had. Megan, I wanted, before we leave here today, there was one thing that you had mentioned that ultimately is your goal, and that was that you really believe that trying to get some more of our military men and women on campus here together to speak about these times that they had is unbelievably beneficial to you. Can you just share with us what sort of your long-term plan is for those military men and women here on campus?
I wish I could say I have a plan. I have a vision.
Okay, that's the same thing.
It's that during the Obama administration, the Department of Education released 8 keys that are big factors in the success of veteran students, and one of them was connection with each other. And so my vision is that our veteran students on campus will build connections with each other, whether that is just through email communication because they have similar email addresses at Central Penn, or if it's that they come on campus and get together, or if it's that they meet each other in class and find that they have this in common and can hang out, whatever it is, just to get them to connect with people that have similar experiences.
So if you're a military man or woman here, or veteran who is attending Central Penn College, we certainly encourage you to reach out to Bret or Rodney or especially Megan Kaiser to try to help facilitate that. And I know on campus we have had the Armed Forces Association. Do you mind providing us with an update on maybe where that is, or if that's ultimately where your vision might lead some of these people sort of congregating together?
Yes, I would like for the Armed Forces Association to be kind of the gathering place of all of our military students. If it means that we do things outside of campus, great. If we do things on campus, these guys ran a poker night the other week just to try attracting some other military students to it. So we're looking for things that will bring them together.
Great. Well, again, Thursday, May 23rd is the Memorial Day Cookout, and of course, we're going to take our time to honor and remember all of those who have fallen, and of course, all of those veterans who have spent years of their lives protecting our country on May 27th. Rodney, Bret, thank you so much for sharing. I know that it often maybe brings up memories that's some good, maybe some that weren't as good, but hopefully you're both able to take some positive experiences away from that and share in the camaraderie that you've made. So I want to thank both of you for being here and sharing your experiences.
Hey, this has been great. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. I wanted to thank success coach Megan Kaiser for joining us. And again, Thursday, May 23rd at 12 o'clock, the Memorial Day Cookout. Be sure to check that out. And of course, I also wanted to thank Nightly News Media Club members Bret Saveleski and Rodney Edwards. All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. We'll see you again next time.
I'm Dylan Bowman, former president of the Nightly News, and you're listening to the Nightly News Podcast.
everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I'm so honored to be joined by the Library Director, Margaret Schachte. Margaret, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks. It's good to be back. I think it's been a whole year.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, we'll have you on next term as well for something that you're working on with our CPC film series, so we will certainly not... I can't believe it's been a year. That's crazy. It seems like only yesterday when you were on last. Also being joined by our nightly news reporter, our nightly news correspondent, and of course our general education work study, Noah Lopez. Noah, welcome back to the show.
Hey, I love being on this show. At this point, I'm a recurring character. Right?
And you will continue to be moving forward.
Oh, boy.
So today, the big topic is going to be the upcoming research exhibition that's going to be taking place on Wednesday, June 5th from 3 to 5 p.m. in the Conference Center. It is open to all to come and attend, but if you would like to be a part of this, you do have to sign up by Sunday, June 2nd. So what I want to do is talk a little bit more about the event itself. Noah is actually participating in the research exhibition, so we'll hear a little bit more about what he is talking about. And then lastly, really what some of the function and purpose of this 9th annual research exhibition is. So why don't we start there? First of all, you have been on our campus. It's been over a year now that you've been our library director. So can you tell us, first of all, a little bit more about the research exhibition, but most importantly, why is this such an important thing for you to do each and every year? Something that I know, spend a lot of time on, not only just in terms of logistics, but getting people to come out and be a part of it.
Yeah, the research exhibition first started in 2016, and it's been around for the entire time since then. So it must really be helping people and be useful for the community. Otherwise, we wouldn't get the turnout that we do every single year. The research exhibition is really just a wonderful opportunity for our students to they put so much work into their research for their classes, and it's good to give them a place to showcase that. And also to work on their presentation skills. When you go into a field, any field really, there's going to be conferences where you can network with your peers. And a growing way that people share ideas at these conferences, obviously you have the full-on presentations, but what's becoming more and more popular are these lightning talks and poster sessions where everybody can really participate in sharing their ideas with their colleagues. And so it's good to give our students a pre-taste of that, and they can work on their presentation skills, refine their research, and really work on how to showcase what they've learned visually to make an impact with an audience who's going to be, maybe spending only 2 to 3 minutes looking at their poster. And that's a really important skill to learn in just about every field.
Lightning talks. I've not heard that the nomenclature for this, but it makes sense. We are living in a much more dynamic world, a much more visual world, and I think that these skills are extremely useful, not only just for if our students would want to, go on in their higher education beyond Central Penn, but also as a way to be able to sort of synthesize everything in their research, make it visually appealing for the people who are coming up to the individual booths and talking about their research projects. But that's essentially what it is. So for all of you out there, if you have never come to any of the previous 8 research exhibitions, basically what it is down in the conference center, there's going to be tables set up all around the room, and different, not only just individuals, but groups of people who are working on different research projects from their classes are able to put together a poster display in order to present. And not only the judges, but their peers will also come and visit their individual booths, talk to them more about their specific area of research, and really just allow students to share what they're working on. And Margaret, before I come to Noah to talk about his experience with this, one of the things that I do think that is most unique about this is that, frankly, it's very difficult to learn what people are doing in their classes. I mean, I could sit and talk to a student about research they're doing outside of my classes, but it's often there's just not that platform for individual students to present and share the research that they work so hard on. And so what do you think? Why do you think that that's so important? I mean, you mentioned some of the logistical pieces, but why do you think it's so important for these students to be able to present on these things that in most cases are something that they're very passionate about?
Right, and it's wonderful for people to have that outlet, right, to share that enthusiasm. I think and I might be biased as a librarian who my entire job has to do with research, but I think research is profoundly exciting. And when research is going correctly and when people are actually involved with what they're working in, it's just such an exciting thing because you're learning new things and then you get to turn around and share those new things with other people. And I think sometimes when we do research in school, we're missing that sharing aspect. So one of the reasons that research leads to innovation and it leads to so many new and exciting discoveries is because after you do all of that learning, you turn around and share it. And when you're missing that piece, sometimes the research almost feels meaningless because you're like, well, where did it go? I got a grade, but beyond that, like, what is the next step? How does this keep living? And it leads to further connections, right? Because when you do your research and then somebody else in your class is also doing research, you can share what you learned, yes, but then also talk about the different things you found and maybe how those two unique things connect, which really just makes it like a microcosm of how research in the huge world that we have actually works. I think it lends to that atmosphere of collaboration and excitement and just the genuine joy of sharing the information that you've collected.
One of the interesting things that I have learned from being able to attend the Popular Culture Association National Conference for the last 4 years now is that I did feel that I had a platform and I did feel that I was able to share the things that I was talking about. So this year in Chicago, I got to present on my dissertation research. And that to me was so exciting, really more exciting than almost anything that I had ever done up to that point because I've worked so hard on this. I've been working on it for 2 years and I do want to feel and did want to feel that other people could at least share in the hard work that I put in, and likewise me, them. Like, it was so much fun for me to go to some of these other panels. In fact, I kind of set a little bar in terms of how many other panels that I want to attend, why I want to attend those, how that can help me in my professional development. And one of the things that I always find coming back from these conferences is that I almost feel reinvigorated in terms of the things that I'm doing and also thinking about how I can apply the things that I've learned to my own craft. So it's, I think, much more about just the selfishness of presenting on your own, but just sort of being in that area around other people who have similar passions for research as you do that really made it so special for me and so important and really why I continue to do this each and every year. It's not necessarily something I'm required to do, but it's something that I enjoy doing and makes me appreciate the research that I'm doing and appreciate other people's research too.
Yeah, it really can supercharge the experience, when you start seeing that other people are also interested, they're also excited, and sometimes you end up making new mental connections and your research can go and spiral off in different ways just from being able to talk with other people who can bring new perspectives and things. But I did like what you talked on with like networking and the professional development side of things. At the very least, this research exhibition is a wonderful opportunity for students to take a picture of themselves with a very impressive looking poster board that they can add to their LinkedIn.
100%. And here's another thing. This is sort of one of the biggest takeaways I had. I had somebody in the audience after it got to Q&A. He said that he was looking more forward to my presentation than any other one at the conference.
Oh, that must have felt amazing to hear.
Oh my gosh, it was one of the greatest things I ever recall hearing in my life. But he was just so interested in the topic. And then I actually got to sit and talk with him. And we, went down and grabbed a cup of coffee afterward and got to network. And I got his information. And I told him, hey, when I'm done with this, I'll send it over. Those are the types of things that just go to show that all the time is going to be worth it. So, which brings me to Noah. So Noah, you are going to be presenting at the research exhibition coming up on June 5th from 3 to 5 in the conference center. So first of all, let's go back to the beginning. When did you first find out that this was going to be one of your classroom assignments that you were going to be discussing?
I believe it was either week 1 or week 2. My Professor Stuckey, introduced it to me, the whole class, and said that we are going to be putting together a presentation for this exhibition, and we're going to do extensive research on a topic that is hyper-specific, but also very relevant.
So what did you ultimately decide to discuss? What is your topic of choice here for the research exhibition?
Well, see, in the beginning, I wanted to study road rage and why it mattered and why it happened.
I remember when you were in the beginning stages of looking for resources on that.
I was like, I want to find road rage, but I found out that researching road rage is absolute pain, and it's the worst thing you could ever do because they have almost little to no information online about it. And the amount of sources I found when I searched it up were like 2 to 3. I'm like, oh, goodness gracious. So I switched it to how can the U.S. encourage hydropower, the use of hydropower to combat climate change? And that's what I'm going to be presenting on. Yeah.
What is it about either the general issue of climate change or the specificity in terms of hydropower that speaks to you that you're passionate about? I mean, is this something that in your normal life you think a lot about and what impacts you can have to help address climate change?
I don't think about it every day, but I do feel that it should be talked about more because, I mean, climate change is a really big thing. It's happening all around us, and people like to ignore it and act like it's not happening. And the thing that's happening with rappers is more important than what's going on with climate change. It's like, okay, guys, the world is burning. Our weather is going crazy. The oceans are acting up. I mean, that's why I want to address it. And also, I want to address it because I feel like the U.S. could take more measures to help encourage the use of hydropower and any other renewable resources opposed to fossil fuels to combat climate change, to, slow down the process, because climate change is going to keep going no matter what. It's like we're not stopping at this point, but we can slow it down by taking some measures, using more renewable resources, and steering away from fossil fuels, things like that.
And that's one of the things that I always felt was really interesting, that since when did climate change become a political issue?
Who knows?
But back in the 1980s, this was never a political issue. It was a bipartisan issue. And now, just like everything else, and of course, this is not a political podcast, and I'm not a political commentarian, but I just think, generally speaking, like, of all things, why is this something that we're arguing about politically?
I think it got into politics because at
everything
some point,
gets into politics.
At some point, people were like, we need to get our government to pass some policies, or we need to get the government involved if we want this to stop, right? Because they see the government as, well, those are the world powers. Those are the people in charge of the things that are happening most of the time. I mean, they can't control Mother Nature, but they can control some decisions that will lead into the direction of causing more climate change, like oil farming and, relying on fossil fuels too much natural gas usage, things like that.
Even something like plastics. If you think about the rhetoric of recycling, the rhetoric of recycling is really all pushed on the consumer. So if you buy, I see Noah sitting here with a plastic bottle. If you buy that plastic bottle, it's your responsibility to recycle that plastic bottle, right? That's the rhetoric that we hear. But in all reality, we as individuals are never going to be able to solve climate change because we as individuals often aren't willing to make sacrifices that are needed. And for good reason, I understand that. However, let's just say the federal government says to Coke and Pepsi, hey, you're going to need to find a better way to package your goods.
Yeah, just do that.
That moves the needle.
Change the bottles. Maybe don't make them out of plastic, But then again, plastic is it's very sturdy material. It's a good material. See this bottle right here. I mean, I couldn't see myself drinking out of anything else, right? And it does come down to, yes, it's the people's fault. It's also the government's fault. It's all of our faults. So we can't blame our government or blame someone else when we're all part of the problem. Like, if you're not throwing your water bottles into the recycle bin when you're done, then you're causing climate change.
Yeah, but the recycle bins too, that's a whole nother topic. I mean, most of it ends up in landfills anyway, or
exactly.
in China.
Less than 10% of plastic that is made is recycled.
Wow.
Less than 10%.
Wow.
And one step further, you'd mentioned China. We used to export a lot of our plastics. They won't take our plastic anymore because it's not worth anything. And that's sort of the secondary issue.
It's
like
filthy.
Aluminum is highly recyclable and has value. Just like, if you use a lot of aluminum and you put them in bags and you take them to the aluminum recycling center, they will pay you money.
Yeah.
No one's paying you to take your plastic, right? And so when you think about that, what's really interesting about all of this is that, yes, the manufacturers use plastic because of the reasons Noah mentioned. Unfortunately, it has no resale value. Now, you do see people like Adidas making shoes out of recycled materials, and, we give them credit for that.
That's pretty cool. I mean, that's awesome. I'd buy a shoe just to see what it feels like.
I mean, I have one. It's not the most comfortable shoe in the world, but it's not the least. But my point is that, maybe that is why I got into politics, because at some point we're going to have to legislate this if we're ever going to try to address this. Unfortunately, we haven't made any new to, that I'm aware of, major strides in recycling or even just fossil fuel usage, other than making some more fuel efficient cars. But no, and we'll come back to you before we get out, and just so we can maybe kind of get a little preview about some of the things that you've learned. So, Margaret, when we think about this, and again, I know that you've been here for this is your second one, but in terms of historically, what have you heard in terms of how this came to be, why this research exhibition got off the ground, and what is sort of its legacy here at Central Penn College?
So from what I understand, the idea was put together by the lady who at the time was our research and instruction librarian, Emily Reed. And our concept of the research exhibition was actually based off of an idea that was shared in the Pennsylvania Library Science Journal. We kind of copied and pasted the program that they had put out there. And to my understanding, it has worked incredibly well. One thing that is really interesting to me is that it has been very difficult for us to take this program virtual, especially in a world where a lot of people demand things to be online. They don't want to show up in person. A lot of entire events are moving to online platforms. The library has tried multiple times, actually just about every year, to really boost our virtual attendance because people are allowed to submit their research virtually, present virtually, be judged virtually, and basically no one has ever taken the library up on that opportunity, which is just a really interesting trend. I mean, even during COVID, the library had a really hard time getting anyone to participate in a format other than in person, which I think does speak to just the social atmosphere that the research exhibition, really brings out, and your ability to collaborate in person with your classmates. But I do think that's a really interesting trend when the rest of the world seems to be going the other way, but our research exhibition is insistently in person.
On one hand, though, it's almost sort of understandable in that, during COVID, we all thought that the wave of the future was going to be working from home. And now you see a lot of that reverting back to sort of, at best, a hybrid remote situation where you're still expected to go into the office every so often and maybe get to work from home a day or two a week. So I think that maybe we all sort of jumped the gun a little bit in terms of how remote we actually are going to be. I think people still crave that in-person situation, especially in terms of networking. To me, you're going to get so much more out of it if you are in person because you get to see people's faces, you get to work with their emotions and speak to that, but also who you're meeting and the interactions that you have with those people. So I applaud you for still offering this option, and you never know, maybe if our professors maybe get some more of our online students involved, maybe you see an uptick there as well. So
that was the real big motivation for me, because as someone who my entire life, I was an online student. I was homeschooled as a kid, and then I went to college all the way through my master's completely online. And there weren't a lot of opportunities for me to display my research or to be engaged with my online classmates. And so it's really important to me that we at least offer that opportunity. Seeing that Central Penn has so many online students, it's something that it's really important to me that we continue to offer. And if any online students are listening right now, I would really hope and suggest that you at least consider it, because, we've tried to still make it as rewarding as possible, still offer that level of engagement with the judges, and you're still eligible to, get in the running for first or second or third place and perhaps win a prize.
Speaking of those prizes, for those of you who may be sort of on the fence about joining the research exhibition, can you share with us a little bit more about some of the prizes that are available?
Yes. In the past, I believe the library had put together gift baskets, but in the recent years, we've moved on to cold hard cash. You didn't know about this. Yes, the research exhibition offers cash prizes.
Really?
It's usually $100 for first place, $75 for second, and $50 for third, and the popular vote gets $25.
Yeah, we've actually, in the past, the Nightly News as a club has participated in this. We're not this year, but we certainly hope to in the future, and we've done quite well in doing the research exhibition. So if you are thinking about it, there are the cold hard cash up for the victors.
We love research exhibitions. You got to be upfront with it, Like, just show us that you're giving us money and we will be more motivated to participate.
And there might be some more opportunities for people to have a chance at winning this year, just because we changed a little bit how the competition is going to be set up. So instead of just having one general category that everyone is competing in, this year we decided to make the move to split the entries between sciences and humanities. And we did this because a lot of the questions that you ask in humanities and that you try to answer look different, and your posters will look different than somebody in the sciences. And we just thought it was maybe more fair to create a separate rubric for humanities. It's not any less intense or less rigorous, but the rubric is more suited to the kinds of questions you're trying to ask and answer. And we think because of that, humanities entries will maybe get more visibility than they had in the past. And it'll be fair to our science people too, because then you're not trying to compare apples and oranges.
And that's what I was just going to say. So I've had the opportunity to judge, I believe, the last 2 years, and I'm looking forward to judging this year as well. That was the toughest thing, is that if we had one thing that was like a quantitative look at something highly specific to somebody's major in the health sciences, and then to come back and it was literally was like comparing apples to oranges. I mean, for lack of a better, colloquialism. But I do appreciate that. I think that's going to make it easier for the judges. I think it's going to be easier for the presenters because they're hopefully the people who are judging one side or another are maybe more well versed. Like for me, if you're telling me about something specific to occupational therapy, I might not be familiar with that. So it might, especially if I only have a couple minutes at each station, it might be difficult for me to ask all those questions. So, well, Noah, before we get out of here, I'm very interested in your project. I know you've been working very hard on research, so tell us a couple of interesting things that you've learned in this process.
Well, when you're looking at hydropower, can you tell me, are you looking at like mass energy production, or are you looking at individual places being powered by water?
Yes.
Both?
So when you look at hydropower as a whole, we're looking at it as a renewable energy resource and something to use that isn't a fossil fuel, really. It's something that we can use that it's always going to be, it's infinite, it'll always be on the earth, and it's healthy for the earth as well. It's not going to cause more climate change.
When you're talking hydropower, are you talking more like dams or like wave power?
So hydro-powered, electrical-powered things powered by water, hydro-powered water wheels, dams, yes, and hydro-powered generators and power plants as well, those kind of things. And also, I've researched this thing. Apparently there are climate havens being created all over the country where hydropower is the main source of electricity in those areas, which why it's called a climate haven, because it's like the safe space.
Although it is interesting, and maybe this is too broad for your research in particular right now, but it's so interesting to see the impacts climate-wise. Like you have the benefits of a clean source of energy, but then you have the dams, which can be such a huge issue, like for the local ecology. Have you touched into that at all?
The local what? Oh, ecology? No.
Like the fish that are in the river that
I've
had
not
the dam.
researched anything about the fishies, but...
Well, guess what? Now you have another angle that you can take.
The fishies?
Well, Noah, not only thank you so much for discussing a little bit about your research, and we're looking forward to coming down and seeing your poster, but thank you for taking an interest in this. I mean, this is something that I do believe that I want the Nightly News to be a part of, and I hope in some of my future classes that we're able to continue this tradition. One of the greatest traditions that has really blossomed in my time here, and it's something that I always try to get involved with in any way I can. And Margaret, thank you for continuing this tradition. I know it's a lot of additional work for you, but I'm sure that I can just tell that it's something that you just so look forward to in your position. So thank you.
I'm very excited. This year I'm going into it knowing what to expect. Last year I had just recently been hired and it was a lot and it was very fun, but also I didn't have any expectations going in. This year, I have some plans on how to make things a little better, less chaotic, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the research that everyone brings to the table.
What were the prizes last year if they weren't cash? What was it?
No, last year they were cash. Back at the beginning, like in 2016 and such, they had like gift baskets. But
that's
for the
nice.
past several years, we've been like a cash-only prize society.
Cash only, man. I think gift baskets are better because then you can see what's in it.
Yeah, but I'm the one who has to assemble the gift basket.
Oh, never mind. Okay.
Well, again, thank you so much. And just a couple of dates to keep in mind. Deadline to sign up is Sunday, June 2nd. There will be a poster assembly party in the library on June the 3rd. And of course, the event will take place on Wednesday, June the 5th in the Conference Center. If you have more questions, you can go to guides.centralpenn.edu/research exhibition for the LibGuide on that. And of course, you can always reach out to a library at centralpenn.edu to reach out to Margaret and to get some more information about this. So keep that on your calendar. Save the date for June 5th from 3 to 5, and we hope to see you down in the Conference Center. There'll be some snacks available. We're going to have some light refreshments down there, so it's a good time to come out, learn more about what your classmates are doing, and support them while you're at it. So I wanted to have the chance to thank Noah. Noah, again, thank you so much for sharing your experiences, and we're looking forward to seeing your poster.
Well, you're welcome, and I'm looking forward to seeing my poster as well.
And of course,
much.
Thank you so much to the Library Director, Margaret Schachte, who not only for being here today, but also putting together this wonderful research exhibition.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. For Library Director Margaret Schachte and General Education Work Study and Nightly News Correspondent Noah Lopez, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll see you again next time on the Nightly News Podcast.